Welcome back everybody to week 138 of this reboot progression series. In the last video we upgraded our gear, and since I was able to break the 400 million combat power threshold, I said to myself that I'm going to do one attempt of extreme Lotus a day until I clear the boss. And guess what? A couple of days and many more than just one attempt a day later, and we are here. This is going to be my road to soloing Extreme Lotus. And just to get this out of the way, I could have made a montage of me dying in this boss fight, but seeing me die nearly 100 times in this fight is not really that interesting. And seeing me die outside of phase 3 is just really disappointing. So I'd rather skip that, but be assured, yes, I also died in phase 1. It happens. So, the entry point for this video is going to be this run right here. This should be around attempt 15, where I finally managed to time out. Yes, I timed out, and I was really stoked to have done so, because timing out in a boss fight, in a new boss fight for me that I'm trying to solo clear, is the first big milestone. And what can I say? You know, you'll always start out by just dying out, and then what I like to do is play safer and safer and safer until I eventually are able to stay alive for the full timer or the full duration of the boss fight. And once I can do that, I can scale up my DPM and play riskier and try to fit in more damage and more damage. But the reason why I approach bossing like this is because it gives me much more exposure to the later phases of the boss fights, and I can actually focus on dodging the patterns instead of forcing myself to constantly DPM as much as I can. And let me tell you, yes, this does help me a ton when trying to learn a new boss fight. Just being able to dodge the patterns and, you know, being able to focus on dodging the patterns makes me internalize how to dodge the patterns, right? And when I'm eventually trying to up my DPM in that boss fight, I can still, you know, I can draw from that experience and don't really have to think as much when trying to dodge any patterns, and I can focus more on maximizing my damage because I laid down this foundation on how I want to approach different pattern combinations. But of course, you know, this doesn't go without saying that timing out is nearly impossible in some fights. I remember when I first tried to solo Lucid, dying out was much more common than just being able to time out, because the tests that you eventually have to face when you can't clear the butterflies anymore are something that, are just super deadly. And as soon as you are a little bit stronger, you don't even have to face the tests or play the tests again anymore at all. So maybe, you know, in Lucid, timing out is not the number one priority. You know, something similar can happen in Will, where realistically you're not really gonna time out, but rather you web out in phase 3. But you know, the later you can web out, or the longer you can stay alive in P3, is basically the equivalent of timing out. And yeah, anyways, with this intro out of the way, this was the run where I completed the first step, timing out. And with time being of the essence here, let's skip ahead and go straight into the real run, instead of showing you a montage, you know, like I said, of me dying after I was able to time out in the boss fight, because I don't magically started playing perfectly after achieving the first milestone. And, you know, that's something where I can just say, even in the run, that we are watching right now, which is the clear run. This is my first extreme Lotus solo that we're watching right here. Even in this run, I'm doing a lot of mistakes, and I'm sure, even though I I cleared this week, next week is gonna be dreadful. I'm gonna dread first day reset because I know I have to do it again, right? I have to do it again, and this wasn't easy, and I'm very likely to not be able to just do it on my first attempt, and that's kind of what I'm dreading right now. But alright, so let's actually start talking as to what is happening on screen right now. First of all, let's talk about the thresholds that you want to hit when trying to solo X-Lotus. Which are the thresholds that I'm talking about. So you want to be phasing out of phase 1 by 22 minutes. At the very least, because otherwise you cannot clear. It's just going to be impossible. In the same vein, you want to phase into phase 3 by 13 minutes. Why, you're asking? Because 13 minutes still means that you have 3 origin bursts to go through in order to finish the run, right? And you might be asking, how can I have 3 origin bursts left? So let's just also clarify that for anybody new. So you enter a boss fight. You have 30 minutes left. Your origin burst, 6-minute cooldown. You have 24 minutes left. Your origin burst, 6-minute cooldown, 18 minutes. Your origin burst, 6-minute cooldown, 12 minutes left on the timer. Your origin burst, 6-minute cooldown, 6 minutes left on the timer, right? And you can't origin burst at, the 0-minute mark, right? With 0 minutes remaining, right? Well, actually you kinda can, even though you have 6 minutes of origin skill cooldown. There is one special legion block that applies here that does reduce the cooldown, and that is the Mercedes legion block, which will enable you to have an additional origin burst after 30 minutes. So if you manage, and this is critical, right? This is critical. If you manage to off burst or start your burst as soon as it becomes off cooldown, so as soon as it's ready, and you immediately are able to hit burst, every time the Mercedes link skill will enable you to have 1 additional burst in the end. And I think this is, it's not real. It's not really like another straight up milestone that you hit. But if you are going for a full timer run, being able to just press burst every time it comes off cooldown is a critical skill that you have to be able to get down. And it's not as trivial as it sounds if you don't really think about it too much. It can be kind of rough because you have to maneuver the boss into a position where you are able to burst straight away. And in Lotus, in phase 1, it doesn't matter at all. In phase 2, it matters. It matters, especially, you can get an FMA pattern and then you'll have to maybe move out of raw, right? And in phase 3, it's absolutely critical that the boss is in the right position. Otherwise, he'll just screw with you. Let's keep it real, right? So, it is an essential skill to be able to burst off cooldown. And you can tell from the video, it's not happening every time, and even to this day, even in the real run, I have especially problems with my mini burst. So if I noticed, okay, I have trouble getting out my mini burst, and the boss isn't in the best position right now, I'll just skip it, right? And there's that. So another thing that happened in the real run where I'm unsure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, or I don't know. Let's just address the topic, right? If you are able to phase out of P1 without having used your second origin burst, so let's say by 24 minutes, you are golden. This is gonna be an easy run. You definitely don't have problems hitting any timings. But I'm personally not there yet. But at the same time, I am extremely close. So what I end up doing at the 24-minute mark when my second origin burst comes up is I do a normal burst. Of course, you know, Lotus P1 dies and we phase into P2. I immediately skip the cutscene. You know, this is very important that you also immediately skip the cutscenes on entry, because otherwise you don't get your first origin burst off quick enough, right? Anyways, I immediately phase into P2 and hit origin. And this is absolutely not what I had planned, right? This was the run where I was just trying this. And, you know, something, you know, every day I said to myself, you know, I'm gonna do one attempt, and that one attempt would be in real mode, right? Because, yeah, dude, I don't know, buffs are cheap, right? It really doesn't matter. So this was a real run, but I kind of went into this relaxed, right? Because I always, or I very regularly do real runs, even for practice sessions. So in this run, I just tried this out. Hit origin when I phase into P2. And that kind of screws with the whole being able to burst off cooldown, because by delaying my origin burst so much, I will definitely not have the origin burst back once the timer hits like 40 seconds or something like that. I am already screwed, right? With that being said, you know, I do clear this run. So maybe doing this was good. Although, you know, I origined outside of AB Link, outside of Roar. It wasn't even that great. But this was the run that I made work. So I'm really unsure about this strategy here. I've not seen anybody do it, and I generally would say it's pretty bad to do. And I should still send the entire origin burst no matter what, because eventually I'm gonna have that one additional burst with 40 seconds remaining on the timer, which I would always deny myself if I play like this. So generally, I think nobody talks about this because it's kind of bad. Let's end on that. And with roughly 16 minutes left on the timer, I enter into phase 3. And I'm gonna get this out straight. I don't have a lot of tips for phase 3. It is really hard. I sat down and kind of wrote down what I want to talk about with all these phases, right? And for phase 3, not a lot came to mind, because it's just the survival simulator 3000. You're always dodging patterns and trying to fit in some damage here and there. The number one we're gonna get out right away. Don't get pushed into the corners. It is absolutely deadly. And I try, you know, compared to Lotus, to stay in the middle of the map. So if I get pushed, I don't get pushed into a corner. I feel like my survival rate is better going for that approach. With that being said, here, even in this video, I'm not following my own advice and getting Lotus into the correct position before even starting my own burst. And you can tell by this first burst that I lost quite a bit of damage uptime here. In my mind, I was still trying to always push out my burst as soon as it comes up, But since I delayed my origin in P1, I already kind of screwed myself over. And the 16 minutes that I have are closer to, you know, what really feels like the bare minimum 13 minutes here because of that kind of crucial mistake. With that being said, I do manage to survive, right? And that is what this boss fight is all about. It is just crazy. And at this point, the next big quality of life improvement that Nexon can offer us is, please let us practice bosses in practice mode, and also let us choose the specific phase of the boss when attempting to run practice modes. And I think that would help anybody trying to solo Lotus tremendously, because you're basically skipping what feels like a 15-minute, yeah, I don't know, cutscene. No, it's not a cutscene. It's not, you know, it's not the Damien boss fight, which really is just a cutscene. No, it's, I don't know. When you start out practicing the Lotus solo, or, you know, honestly, in general, once you start out running Lotus, you will phase into phase 3 and just die out within 2 minutes of, you know, actual gameplay, you know, discounting for the time that you sit in your gravestone iframe, you know, and that feels horrible. You have to go through 15 minutes of filler to get 2 minutes of practice in, and that is something that feels awful. And I went through this a lot. Anyways, on my origin burst here, I actually get Lotus into a good position, and I was able to confirm my burst way better than on the on-entry burst. And yeah, I basically take it from here, you know. I already managed to stay within phase 3 without dying once, so this is a really good sign, because the longer the fight goes, the harder it's gonna get on the nerves, right? So I kind of relaxed at this point, because I still have 5 lives. But, you know, this relaxation only really, let's be honest, you know, it only really holds up until you die once, and then you're like, okay, yeah, this is definitely Lotus after all. It is a hard boss fight, so let's keep my stuff together here, and you know, just just try to survive again. And yeah, at this point I was not so sure if I was able to clear, but you know, I did. Okay, let's skip ahead to the deaths here. I know, you know, the people want to see some deaths, right? Dude, what happened? Dude, I was pushed and then stunned. Okay, yeah. Okay. Pushed and stunned. Good, bad first death. Usually, if you're doing a full timer run and it's super close, you don't want to be sitting in your gravestone iframe. But I do use this time as, you know, as a refresher to just, you know, get into the mood and, you know, really try to focus, don't get tilted, etc. And I just sit out the time in the gravestone iframe, because I know I don't need to utilize, you know, every bit of damage in order to clear. And if I time out, it doesn't matter, I'll clear eventually, right? So in the moment, I just want to get the best practice in that I can, and I can only get the best practice in if I, you know, am as relaxed as possible. And that's why I sit in the gravestone iframe, in order to just get relaxed a little bit. Anyways, the next death, let's skip ahead in the video. I take the portal up and I get pushed into a corner, like I said. Really, really bad. But since my spears are still running, I was like, okay, let's just revive right away. And I've experienced this exact death a ton of times already, so I don't really need to think about it too much. It was just, I got pushed into the corner or something like that. I probably didn't even think that in the moment. I was just looking at my spear timer and I was like, okay, I still have spears, let's go. And that was basically it. Or maybe, you know, I looked at my life counter and the time that I had remaining and was like, okay, let's just send it straight away. Nah, that death was... I don't agree. I see that I died to, you know, the big tentacle, but at the same time, I feel like I shouldn't have died there. Okay, whatever. Let's go to the next one. And yeah, the last death is where I was panicking a little bit, but at the same time, I saw my origin here, and I knew it was going to be up. And you might think, dude, you played it so perfectly, you have your origin again. No, actually, what happened is during the entire fight, I delayed my burst so often that I had just a one less origin burst. Yeah. But yeah, I saw it's about to be up, and I was not gonna die out at 0.2%. So I respawn, hit Jenny iframe to be absolutely safe, and then origin. This was, you know, unfailable in the end. Yeah, actually kind of funny. And unfortunately, I wasn't recording my reaction. And yeah, what can I say? I got a TC and it boomed. And that's about it. I sold the crystal for 1.4 billion and then I spent 7.5 billion on booming the TC. Alright. You know, at least I've seen a TC. How cool is that, right? On my first clear? What is going on, man? And yeah, what else is there to do? This event is actually crazy in terms of benefiting you if you are able to clear X Lotus. Yes, I have 50 Karma Abyssal Flames, and I was very, very seriously considering to use all of them on mule gear because I just want to finalize the flames on my mules. I know, it's cringe, and I should definitely not be doing that. So instead, I've chosen to use these flames, here they are, on my weapon instead, because honestly, the weapon is the equipment that has the highest ceiling for flames, so I might as well use these juicer flames on something that has a high ceiling. So, yes, I'd like to use the Abyssal Rebirth Flame. And now, I will go through all of these flames, one by one, slowly take a look and inspect every flame that I get in order to not miss something, because that would be probably the most painful thing that I could go through in this moment, sitting in front of my PC playing a video game. Anyways, we're starting off with a tier 6 attack, tier 5 boss damage, tier 5 damage flame, and just a tier 7 attack flame without any boss damage on it would not be good enough. So, wish me luck. 83 attack and 10 boss damage. Okay, 30 luck as well, 30 secondary stat. At least, you know, we saw one decent flame. $126 luck. That is funny. Dude, imagine having this much main stat on your weapon. That feels like cheating your stat. No attack. $121 attack. Luck. Attack would be, you know. Oh, no. No attack again. I was like, ooh, 12 boss damage, 6 what's that? And luck, and you know. Oh, here we go. This is tier 7 attack, and it's actually not better than what I have going for myself right now. You know, but at least I've seen it, right? It took, I think, until now. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've never seen tier 7 attack on my weapon. I've seen it on the mules. But yeah. On its own, it's not good enough. So, goodbye. Oh, 14% boss damage. That is tier 7 boss damage. Also super rare. Mm, 10 boss damage, 5 all set. Uh-huh. And last flame. Wow. What? Why is this an attack increase? That doesn't make any sense. Ah, the boss damage doesn't count towards my attack? Okay. Anyways, no upgrade, which is fine. I've seen tier 7 attack. That's cool. With that being said, I might... Dude, I want to use these flames on my mule so badly. It's unbelievable. But it would be troll. Let's keep it real. It would be troll. And yeah. With that being said, that was my Extreme Lotus episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did enjoy making it and also going for the Extreme Lotus solo. Although, you know, it was quite draining at times to force myself. But now that I've done it once, I'm sure I can do it again. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care everybody, and bye bye.